She is just so sassy. Yes, girl. I thought I would redecorate my entire living room to film this video. I'm also going to try to make this video very quick because in January I read 19 books. This is my best reading month ever. I'm going to go through all of these books really quickly. I really hope you're going to like this video. Please give it a thumbs up and let's get into the books. Okay, shall we do some stats first? Because I'm keeping track of all of my books in Notion, so we can take a look at the books that I read. So in total, I read 19 books. 12 of them were audiobooks. 6 of them were physical books and 1 of them was an ebook. In total, I read 2,067 pages and I listened to 125 hours worth of audiobook. This is all absolutely crazy. I still can't believe I had this reading month. The first book I listened to was called King and the Dragonflies, written by Kason Callender. This is a beautiful contemporary middle grade story about a boy named King whose brother Khalid unexpectedly passed away, and King believes that Khalid has turned into a dragonfly and that sometimes he still sees Khalid as a dragonfly. But before Khalid passed away, he told King that King shouldn't hang out with Sandy anymore because it is believed that Sandy is gay. And Khalid doesn't want people to think that King is gay too. So that is the premise of this story, and wow, this was such an amazing read, especially because it is a middle grade story, so this is perfect for children, and it teaches children about the LGBTQIA+ community, the prejudice against gay people and the way that they are treated. This one was so good. I flew through it and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I highly recommend this book. Next up, I read another amazing audiobook, namely Punching the Air, and this is written in verse, which I absolutely loved. This is about a 16-year-old black boy who is committed of a crime that he did not commit. So you follow his story of him going to jail and how his art and his passion for art is sort of helping him through this very difficult time. This is co-written by Yusuf Salam, and he is one of the 5 men who is also wrongfully convicted of a crime with the jogger case in New York City. That is where the Netflix show When They See Us is based on. Highly recommend that show as well as this book. Again, so good. 5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read another 5-star book. This is my first physical book of the year. It is called Heb je nou al een vriend? Or Do you have a boyfriend already? This is a non-fiction book written by Marilotte Haag and Nydia van Voorthuizen. They are 2 amazing Dutch feminists, and this is a book all about those annoying things that you hear being a woman. And they specifically say women or woman with an X to include all people who feel like a woman. This was so good and so infuriating as well, but also so funny the way that they write about these things that are actually very annoying. Like these things, you know, if people say, oh, do you have a boyfriend already? Or boys will be boys. Those type of things, super annoying, but so important that we realize that these things are said to us and the way that we could reply to these annoying comments. I absolutely loved it. It was brilliant. If you're Dutch, please read this book. I really hope that this will be translated one day. Yeah, this one was very good. The next up, I read an ebook called The Pinto, and this is a Dutch book as well. This is about a girl who lives in this house, and next to her house is this very mysterious house with a very mysterious window, and she's kind of drawn to that window, and like she's very interested in what is happening there. And so one day she decides to go to that house and see what's happening inside of that house, and then she's going on this whole adventure. And I really enjoyed this book, but the thing that I didn't really like is that in the first part of the book you meet up with a lot of new characters, and then when she's going to that house and this whole adventure starts, you don't really see those characters anymore, and then there was a whole bunch of new characters, so that was something I didn't really enjoy. But overall it was quite a fun book. I like the historical aspects of this book as well, but it wasn't amazing, so I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Women and Power by Mary Beard. This is a non-fiction book that is all about how women in power are treated, and this is kind of an essay. There were so many interesting points in this book about the history of female oppression. The writer sort of looked at the ancient Greek and Roman worlds and how even back then it already started with how women were oppressed and how they were never really heard. They were just there, you know, and all the men would do all the important things. So that is all about what was happening then, but then she also sort of connected it to the things that are happening now as well. And she talked about other very powerful women, for example Hillary Clinton or Angela Merkel. So this was a very interesting little book. It's really short, but so interesting. The only thing that I was missing in this book is that, like, she's talking a lot about how women are oppressed back then and now as well, but I was kind of missing some points for improvement and how we could improve this and get rid of this, you know. So that's the only thing I was kind of missing in this book. Hence why I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read a graphic novel, namely the 80th anniversary of the Joker. This is full of short stories about the Joker, and I really liked this one. There were some stories that were like that really hooked me, and there were some that weren't too great. So I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars, but it was definitely a very fun and quick comic all about the Joker. The next audiobook I listened to was again so freaking amazing. It is called Where We Go From Here, written by Lucas Rocha. This is a book all about AIDS and HIV. This is something I never read about before, and I'm so happy I did because it really opened my eyes and it taught me so much about HIV and AIDS. So this is about 3 young men in Brazil, and they all deal with HIV in one way or another. I believe it was that one of them has HIV and he's had it for quite a long time. Then another one is recently diagnosed with having HIV. And then the third one, I believe, had a relationship with someone who has HIV. So you had 3 different perspectives, and the book is all about how HIV is not something to be embarrassed about, and all of the prejudice against people who have HIV. And I think the main thing that is so important in this book is that they talk about how with medication you can become undetectable, meaning that you can't even transmit HIV anymore, so that you can have a perfectly safe relationship with someone who has HIV. And I think that there's this whole stigma surrounding HIV that it's, yes, of course it's contagious, but there's medication to make it completely undetectable, meaning, as I said, you can't transmit it anymore. So I think it's so important that we learn about those things, because I didn't know about a lot of the things that were mentioned in this book before I read this. So I am so happy I read this book, highly recommend it, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It was so good. Next up, I read another Joker comic that I still hadn't read. This is called The Joker Death of the Family. This is a really big one. This is the biggest comic I've ever read. It is like 400 and something pages, but I flew through it. A lot of short stories, but they do kind of follow one storyline, sort of. I'm still a bit confused with just comics like these with superheroes and villains, because they're all written by different authors, but they kind of do follow the same stories. I'm a bit of a comic noob, but I really like this one. There was some stories in here that were really amazing, and then again some that were just fun and okay. The thing is that this one was quite messed up at times, and you really saw how freaking evil the Joker is, and that was really messed up. Some parts kind of made me a little bit sick, but it was really good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, the next up, if you don't like Bridgerton, please skip to here, because I listened to all 8 Bridgerton books in 2 weeks. Am I ready for this? Okay, I'm going to try. I have my laptop here. I need to look at some notes because there are 8 different books, okay? So the first one, The Duke and I, is all about Daphne and Simon, and this is of course what the first season, the TV show, is also about. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. All of the Bridgerton books I gave between 3 and 4 stars. There wasn't one that I thought like, oh my god, this is absolutely amazing, and there wasn't one that I thought this was absolutely horrible. They were kind of a bit similar in my opinion, but there were definitely some that were high 4 and some of them that were a low 3. If you don't know Bridgerton, let me explain first. Bridgerton is basically a very large book series, 8 books, that is all about high society London in the 19th century, and you follow this big family, the Bridgerton family. They are with 8 children, from Anthony all the way to Hyacinth. It's like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and it's all about the women finding a husband, brothers looking for wives. The premise is very simple. They are very sexy, they're historical romance books, and I never thought I would say this because I'm not really into those type of books, but I enjoyed these so much. So the first one is all about Daphne and Simon. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. I think I like this one a lot because it was also about a TV show, and I could visualize the TV show a lot in front of me, but still I enjoyed the story very much. Next up we have The Viscount Who Loved Me, and this is all about Anthony and how Anthony is betrothed to this one woman, can't remember her name, but then he's actually in love with Kate, which is her sister. And this is all on the back of the book. If you read the premise of each book, like the back of the book, you know what's going to happen. It's just the way that it's happening is you know, something new. I like this one. It was a bit less fun than the first one. That's also because I don't really like Anthony. So I gave this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. And the third one is called An Offer from a Gentleman. This is all about Benedict, the third or the second brother, and Sophie. And this is like a Cinderella retelling because Sophie was orphaned. She lived with her stepmom and stepsisters, and Benedict was at this masquerade ball. So this is definitely, you know, a Cinderella retelling. Benedict is one of my favorites in the entire show. But the thing is, in the film or like in the TV show versus in the books are quite like, they act really different in the books, I think. And in my opinion, the things that they sometimes say in these books are kind of problematic, but these books are like 20 years old and it takes place in like Regency England, where the only goal of a woman was to find a husband, and women and men and women were definitely not like equal, you know, women couldn't go to university and all of those type of things. So that was kind of portrayed, you know, hence why some of the things the men say are not very nice. But yeah, Benedict in the show was more my favorite compared to the book, but I still really enjoyed this one, and I gave this one 3.75 out of 5 stars. Then we have a Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. This is all about Colin and Penelope. This one was so great as well. I love Penelope and Colin. I think they're such great characters, but again, they're quite different in the show compared to in the book. But still, this one was really fun as well. I gave this one 3.75 as well. Then we have To Sir Philip with Love. This is all about Eloise. Eloise is just, I freaking love Eloise. She's like a feminist character. She wants to go to university. She wants to learn. She doesn't really agree with a lot of things that are happening. So that is why I was also really excited to read this one. And again, I really enjoyed this one. I gave this 3.75 as well. I'm finding this so difficult to rate because, as I said before, I find them quite similar. The next one is When He Was a Wicket, and let me see, this one was all about Francesca. And Francesca, we don't really see her a lot in the TV show, so this was quite new to me, and her character was quite new to me, which I really enjoyed because this is really what it felt like reading a completely new book with characters you don't really know about. And this is all about how she was widowed very young and how she found another husband. I thought this one was fun, but I didn't really feel too much for this book, maybe because I didn't really know Francesca beforehand. So I gave this one 3.25 out of 5 stars. And then we have It's Innis Kiss. This is all about Hyacinth. And Hyacinth is another character in the show that we do see a little bit, but she's very young in the show. And this, of course, is all about how she's going to get married. So she was a lot older in this book. I really enjoyed this one. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I didn't expect this because I, you know, didn't really know Hyacinth a lot from watching the TV show, but this one was so much fun. And I think the reason I like this one a lot is because Lady Danbury is a lot in this book, and I love Lady Danbury. She is just so sassy. Yes, girl. And she was mentioned a lot in this book, so that's why I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Also, the story in this book was really unique and very different from the rest of the books. So again, that's why I liked it so much. And then the last one was actually my least favorite. This is all about Gregory, and this is called On the Way to the Wedding. And it's basically about how Gregory wants to stop this wedding from happening because he's in love with the bride. The premise of this book was fun, but I just didn't really like Gregory, and I liked the other characters more. So I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. This was a lot of Bridgerton. Next up, I read Before the Coffee Gets Cold, Tales from the Cafe. This is the second book in the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series, and this one was again so brilliant. This is a book written by a Japanese author. It is translated from Japanese, and this is all about a little cafe, and if you go there you can have a coffee and you can go back in time to maybe do something that you regret not doing or say something that you regret not saying. And this is made up of 4 chapters, and each chapter is a different story in which you follow different characters, but you like see all of the main characters throughout the entire book. Same as with the first one. I gave the first one 5 stars. I gave this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. The reason I think this one is such a brilliant book is that the writer is capable of making you feel so much by writing just one sentence or completely turning the story around with one sentence. And the thing I love a lot as well is that it just takes place in this cafe, and it feels like the cafe is becoming a character of itself, which I think is so cool and so unique. I've said this a lot before, this is a very unique story. It's something I've never read before. Highly recommend this one if you want to read something completely different. I just loved it very much, hence why I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I finally finished The Secret History by Donna Tartt. This one took me a long time. This is a like dark academia story that follows a few college classmates, and it's about murder and mystery and drugs and alcohol and, you know, death. This was a journey. The first part of the book was like, I was really hooked, and then there were like maybe 200 pages that were quite slow, and then in the back of the book it was like a roller coaster again. And I still gave this one 4 out of 5 stars, even though it took me so long to read. But the thing is, these characters are so like kind of mesmerizing. It was just so interesting to read about these characters, and I think that is really what still got me hooked on this story, is the characters. It felt like the plot could have been a bit more exciting, even though there were definitely like shit was going down, but then the characters were just so cool and so interesting to read about, hence why I still gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. So this was definitely a journey, and I'm still thinking about what I'm actually thinking of this book, you know? I'm still like processing it in my mind. And then the last book I read, I listened to this, but I also have a physical copy. It is Homo Deus, A Brief History of Tomorrow by Yuval Noah Harari. This is the second book in the Sapiens trilogy it is now. You have Sapiens and Homo Deus, and then 21st Lessons for the 21st Century. This is a non-fiction book. Oh, I only just saw that there are illustrations. This is a non-fiction book all about the history of tomorrow. The first one, Sapiens, was about the history of humankind, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It was absolutely mind-blowing. And this one was also quite mind-blowing, but not as mind-blowing as the first one. So because this is all about tomorrow and, you know, the future, some of the things in here are definitely based on research and based on facts, but there are also, you know, speculation, and I like facts a lot. And even though the speculation in this book was very quite scary at times, and, you know, how technology, the things that technology is capable of, and algorithms and AIs, and how we human beings are kind of, you know, wanting immortality and all of these creepy things. So it was definitely a journey and very interesting, and I listened to it in a few days. It's just, his writing style is great because he explains the things in a very easy way, so it's easily understandable, and really, like, just read it. This book series is so freaking cool. I can't wait to read the third one as well, but I'm still thinking about the first one, Sapiens. I still think about that occasionally because it was just so like, whoa. A very interesting and cool book. Highly recommended, but I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. Holy moly, I've only filmed for 29 minutes, so this is quite okay. So I think this will actually still be quite a short wrap up. But I really hope you liked this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you did, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and turn on the notifications so you'll never miss another video. And let me know in the comments if there's a book on this list that you also read or loved. And yeah, really hope you liked it. Don't forget to follow me on my social media and on my Patreon page. And last but not least, I really hope you have a very amazing day, and I will hopefully see you in my next video. Bye!